What have you done for me? What have you done for me that others haven't done? Anita!
What are you talking about?
I'm asking you a simple question.
What have you ever done for me? Anita's voice cut through the university courtyard. David stared at her. What? You heard me. What have you done for me that nobody else could have done? 4 girls stood around Anita. 3 were laughing. Only Grace remained silent. David looked at Anita, hoping she would suddenly realize how cruel she sounded. Anita, please. Not here. Why not here? Anita asked. Let your friends hear it. Let everyone hear it. David swallowed. I gave everything I had for you. And who asked you to? I sold my motorcycle so you could stay in school. So, I sold my laptop. Anita rolled her eyes. I even sold my father's watch. The 3 girls burst into laughter. You were my boyfriend, Anita said coldly. Wasn't that your responsibility? David's voice became weak. I worked day and night just to make sure you had everything you needed. And I did all of that because I loved you. Anita looked at him without emotion. Well, I don't love you anymore. David froze. Is there someone else? Anita glanced toward a black luxury SUV parked nearby. Yes. One of her friends laughed. David, you should have seen this coming. Another added, Anita has upgraded. David looked back at Anita. After everything? She shrugged. Everything you did was nothing special. Grace finally stepped forward. Anita, stop. Anita turned. Stay out of this, Grace. He sold his things for you. I didn't ask him to. He worked to pay your fees. That was his choice. Grace shook her head. You're hurting him. Anita laughed. Then you can take him. The 3 girls burst into laughter again. Anita looked directly at Grace. Since you feel so sorry for him, date him. Grace didn't respond. David lowered his head. He bent down and picked up the things Anita had thrown onto the ground. His eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry, Grace whispered. David looked at her. Don't be. He turned toward Anita. I hope one day you understand what you just threw away. Anita folded her arms. I already know what I threw away. What? A man who couldn't give me the life I want. David nodded slowly. Then I have nothing more to say. He walked away. Grace watched him disappear through the university gate. She didn't know it yet, but that was the last day David would ever beg Anita to love him. 3 years earlier, David and Anita had been inseparable. They had grown up in the same neighborhood. They weren't rich. They didn't have influential parents. They didn't own expensive cars. But they had something they believed was more valuable. A dream. They wanted to build a life together. David worked at a small electronics shop during the day. At night, he sometimes repaired phones and other electronics for people around the neighborhood. Anita was determined to attend university. Then the admission letter arrived. She had been accepted. She screamed with excitement and ran straight to David. I got in. David smiled. I knew you would. But there's a problem. Her smile disappeared. What problem? My parents can't afford the fees. David looked at her. How much? She told him. He was quiet. It was more money than he had ever saved. Anita wiped her tears. It's okay. I'll find a way. David shook his head. No, she looked at him. You're going. With what money? I'll figure it out. David, you don't have that kind of money. I'll figure out. He meant it. Over the following months, David worked harder than ever. He sold his motorcycle, then his laptop. He even sold his father's old wristwatch, the one thing he had kept because it reminded him of his father. When Anita found out, she cried, You sold your father's watch. David smiled. It was just a watch. It meant something to you. You mean more to me. She hugged him. I promise you, David, I'll never forget what you've done for me. David held her tightly. One day we'll look back at this. We'll laugh. Yes. They both laughed. Neither of them knew how different their lives would become. When Anita entered university, everything changed. At first, she called David every evening. She told him about her classes, complained about assignments, and told him when she was hungry. David always tried to help. If she needed money, he sent what he could, If she needed books, he found a way. If her accommodation payment was due, he worked extra hours. But university also introduced Anita to a new world. She met 4 girls who quickly became her closest friends. 3 of them loved expensive clothes, parties, and wealthy men. Grace was different. She was friendly and confident, but she wasn't obsessed with money. One afternoon, the girls were sitting together outside the lecture hall. A wealthy young man walked past them. He was well-dressed, confident, and surrounded by people. One of the girls whispered, "That's Michael." Anita looked. "Who? Don't tell me you don't know him." "I don't." "He's one of the biggest guys on campus." Another girl laughed. "He doesn't even look at prices." Anita smiled. "So?" Her friend looked at her. "Nothing. I'm just saying you should start thinking bigger." Grace immediately interrupted. "Bigger doesn't always mean better." The girls laughed. "Grace, please." Grace looked at Anita. "I'm serious." But the comments continued every day. "Look at the kind of people around you now. David isn't even here. You're in university now. You can't keep living like you're still in secondary school. Anita, you deserve someone who can actually provide." At first, Anita defended David. He's doing his best. But after hearing those words again and again, she began to question him. Grace noticed a change before anyone else. One afternoon, she found Anita looking at pictures of Michael on social media. "What's that?" "Nothing." Grace sat beside her. "Is that Michael?" Anita locked her phone. "Maybe." "Anita." "What?" "Please don't do this." "Do what?" "Don't let these girls convince you that David isn't enough." Anita sighed. "Grace, I'm not doing anything." "You are." Grace lowered her voice. "That man you're looking at has money. Fine. But David has stood beside you when you had nothing." Anita looked away. "I know." "Do you?" Grace continued. "When you were crying because you thought you wouldn't go to university, who helped you? David. When your fees were due? David. When you needed accommodation? David. Then don't throw him away because someone started driving a bigger car." Anita became irritated. "You're making it sound like I'm planning to leave him." "I'm telling you not to." "Why?" "Because one day you may need the person you are about to lose." Anita said nothing, but her friends continued influencing her. And slowly, Grace's voice became the only voice Anita didn't want to hear. Michael eventually approached Anita. He was older than most of the students. He was wealthy. He had connections. He knew how to make people feel important. "Can I buy you lunch?" Anita smiled. "I have a boyfriend." Michael shrugged. "I didn't ask you to marry me." Her friends laughed when she told them. "Just go. It's only lunch. You're not doing anything wrong." Grace disagreed. "Don't go." Anita frowned. "Why?" "Because you already know what he's interested in." "I can handle myself." Grace sighed. "Just be careful." Anita went anyway. One lunch became another, then dinners, then expensive gifts. Michael began taking her to places David could never afford. Anita started changing her clothes. Her phone changed. Her lifestyle changed. And eventually, her attitude toward David changed. David called her one evening. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You sound different." "I'm just tired." "Did you eat?" "Yes." "I sent some money for your transport." "Okay." David smiled. "I miss you." There was silence. "I'll call you later." The call ended. David stared at his phone. Something wasn't right. A few days later, he traveled to see her. He brought her favorite snacks. He had also saved money for her school expenses. He arrived at the university and saw her stepping out of Michael's car. He stopped. Anita saw him. Her face changed. "David." He looked at Michael, then at her. "Can we talk?" Michael smiled. "I'll see you later." After he left, David looked at Anita. "Who is he?" "Someone I know." "Are you seeing him?" Anita became defensive. "Why are you questioning me?" "Because you're my girlfriend." She sighed. "David, I'm tired." "Tired of what?" "Tired of struggling." "I know. That's why I'm working." That's exactly the problem. David looked confused. What do you mean? You're always working. Because I want us to have a future. She looked at him. Maybe I don't want that future anymore. That conversation eventually led to the day in the courtyard. The day David came with her favorite snacks. The day he brought money for her next semester. The day she humiliated him in front of her 4 friends. The day she told him he was nothing special. The day she chose Michael. And the day Grace stood alone against the others. David walked away broken. But something inside him had changed. He had spent years building Anita's future. Now, he decided to build his own. For the first few weeks, David struggled. He couldn't sleep properly. He lost his appetite. He barely spoke to anyone. But one morning, he stood in front of a mirror and said, "Enough." He wasn't going to spend the rest of his life asking why Anita left. He needed to know who David was without Anita. He found work at a logistics company. The salary wasn't impressive, but he showed up early. He learned quickly. He volunteered for difficult assignments. His manager noticed. "You're serious about this." "I have to be." "Why?" David smiled. "Because I don't want to remain where I am." Slowly, things began improving. Not dramatically, not overnight, but steadily. His salary increased. He saved. He started a tiny side business. Sometimes it failed. Sometimes it succeeded. But he kept going. Grace never abandoned him. She didn't suddenly become his girlfriend. She simply remained his friend. One evening, she visited him. "You look tired." "I am." "Have you eaten?" "No," she shook her head. "You haven't changed." David laughed for the first time in weeks. "Neither have you." Grace smiled. She encouraged him. When he had an interview, she wished him luck. When his business made its first major sale, she celebrated with him. When he lost money on a deal, she reminded him, "One bad day doesn't mean you're a failure." David slowly began seeing her differently, not because she was replacing Anita, but because she showed him something he had forgotten. Love could be peaceful. Love could be supportive. Love didn't have to make him feel like he wasn't enough. Meanwhile, Anita believed Michael was her future. Until he wasn't. Michael began disappearing. He stopped answering her calls. He became distant. Then one day, Anita discovered he had another girlfriend. She confronted him. "You lied to me." Michael shrugged. "What did you expect? I thought you loved me. I liked you. You said you wanted me. I wanted you then." Anita's heart broke. She remembered David, the man who never disappeared, the man who worked overtime for her, the man who sold his possessions, the man who never made her beg for help. She called him. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. She sent messages. Nothing. Then she heard something that made her heart sink. David was doing well, and Grace was always with him. David and Grace didn't rush into a relationship. They talked. They spent time together. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses. One evening, David finally said, "Grace, I think I'm falling in love with you." She looked at him. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Is it because Anita hurt you?" "No, then why?" David smiled. "Because you were there when I had nothing to offer." Grace looked down. "I never wanted anything from you." "I know. And I don't want you to choose me because you're afraid of being alone." David reached for her hand. "I'm choosing you because I know what it feels like to lose someone who doesn't value you." Grace smiled. "And you think I value you?" "I know you do." Their relationship grew slowly. No luxury cars. No sudden riches. No perfect life. Just 2 people trying to build something together. And little by little, their lives improved. Months later, Anita finally decided to find David. She told herself she only wanted to apologize. But deep down, she wanted him back. She went to the place where he worked. She saw David. He looked different. Not because he had become incredibly wealthy. Because he was confident. He was happy. And beside him was Grace. Anita froze. "Grace." Grace turned. "Anita, you're dating him?" David answered, "Yes." Anita stared at him. "You moved on with my friend?" Grace immediately corrected her. He moved on with someone who believed in him. Anita became furious. You knew what happened between us. Yes. And you still did this? Grace remained calm. I didn't do anything to you. You stole him. No, Grace shook her head. You left him. Anita couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then the other 3 friends arrived. The same 3 who had laughed at David. The same 3 who had encouraged Anita to leave him. Anita looked at them. You're going to defend her? One of them nodded. Yes. After everything? Another friend stepped forward. Anita, we were wrong. You told me to leave David. We did. You told me I deserved someone better. We were wrong. She looked at Grace. Why are you all protecting her? The third friend answered, because Grace warned you. Silence. She told you not to leave him. She told you not to follow Michael. She told you that you would regret it. Anita's eyes filled with tears. But you didn't listen. Grace looked at her. I never wanted your relationship to end. Anita whispered. Then why are you with him? Grace answered softly. Because when you walked away from him, he needed someone who wouldn't. Anita turned to David. Can we talk? Grace stepped aside. David followed Anita a short distance away. I was wrong, Anita said. David nodded. I know. I didn't appreciate you. I know. I thought Michael could give me everything. David remained silent. He left me. David looked at her. I'm sorry. I want another chance. David took a deep breath. Anita, I know I don't deserve it. David looked toward Grace. I forgave you a long time ago. Anita's eyes brightened. But forgiveness doesn't mean we have to go back. Her expression fell. I still love you. I loved you too. Then why can't we try again? Because I found peace. Anita began crying. David continued. You taught me something. What? That love isn't supposed to make you feel worthless. He looked toward Grace. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Anita wiped her tears. So that's it? Yes. You choose her. David nodded. I choose her. Anita looked at Grace. For the first time, there was no anger in her eyes, only regret. She finally understood. Grace hadn't stolen her boyfriend. Anita had given him away. David didn't become successful overnight. He continued working. His small business grew. Grace supported him. They faced setbacks. They celebrated small victories. Eventually, David expanded the business. He hired employees. He bought his first car. Then another. He moved into a better home. But even after achieving those things, he never forgot where he started. Years later, David and Grace got married. The wedding wasn't about proving Anita wrong. It wasn't about revenge. It was simply 2 people celebrating the life they had built together. And Anita, she eventually rebuilt her own life too. She learned that money wasn't the problem. The problem was allowing other people's opinions to make her forget the person who genuinely loved her. She learned that friends can influence your decisions, but you are still responsible for the choices you make. And perhaps the most painful lesson of all was this. Sometimes the person you abandoned while chasing something better isn't waiting for you when you finally realize your mistake. David had once given everything he had to help Anita reach her dream. She had looked at his sacrifices and called them his responsibility. Years later, David finally understood something too. His responsibility wasn't to spend his entire life proving that he was worthy of Anita. His responsibility was to build a life where he was valued, respected, and loved. And beside him was Grace, the one friend who had warned Anita from the beginning, the one who said, "Don't leave a good man because someone else looks better." Anita didn't listen. Grace did, and in the end, Grace wasn't the woman who stole Anita's future. She was the woman who helped David build his own. And if you want more story like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so that you won't miss the next story. And feel free to drop a comment and like. See you in the next video.